Ali Bey,
Salam Cavanşir müəllim. Necəsiz?
necəsiz?
Hardasınız? Burada yoksa?
Ben Bakıdayım.
Ha, çok güzel, çok güzel. Bi- Biz de burada kalmışık London'da bir yere terpenebiliriz.
Bilirəm, ha, çox çətin vəziyyətdir. Elə bizim uşaqlar da qalıb Bakıda.
Öyle mi?
Ha, yeni il qabağı gətirmişdim vacation'a. Sonra bütün uçuşlar cancel oldu. Bunlar da qaldı. Amma məktəb də online olduğu için dedim elə Bakıdan oxusun nə fərq edər ya Londonda.
Bəli, herkes dünyanın bir tarafında kalır.
Bəli.
Ama Allah'tan ki bu online business olur yani. Mektepler de yapıyor. En yaxşısı odur.
Çalışır artık.
Biz de burada aşıya başladılar. Göre belki bir iki aya biraz nefes alabilir yani. Ben geçen 6. gün Satırday ben birinci aşı oldum.
Ha, oldunuz mu artık?
Oldum. Bizim yaşımız biraz müsait oluyor. One advantage of getting old, you know.
Ha, ama bir de 3 hafta sonra mı olacaksınız?
Teessüf ki yok. 3 hafta sonra olmak lazım ama bizim becerikli hükümetimiz onu 3 aya çıkarttı.
Yok her şey.
Vallahi doktorlar da çok narahat olublar ki böyle şey olabilmez çünkü.
Ama bes o zaman şey olmayacak mı? O efektini yitirmez mi 3 aya?
Bəli, onun için çok büyük münakaşa gedir yani indi. Çok büyük münakaşa gedir ama bilirsən bizim hükümet de biraz bu işi başından beri səhv elədi. Doğru dürüst.
En başlangıcından öyle.
Evet, onun için indi gene büyük səhv elədi. Doktorlar çok büyük itirazlar edirlər ama dinleyen yoktu. Bunlar deyirlər bir an önce maximum people get vaccinated. Ama ilerisi için problem yaratırlar yani. 3-4 ay sonra.
Olabilir.
Ya indi bir doktoru okuyordum. Deyir ki ilk aşıdan ilk peyvənd deyirsiniz siz öyle değil mi Bakı'da?
Peyvənd deyirik.
İlk peyvəndən sonra 3 hafta sonra %50. İkincisi vurduktan sonra
hemen ikincini vurmak lazımdı ki o biraz da artsın.
o zaman bu benimki Pfizer'di yani BioNTech Almanya. O zaman o göğe %95 olacak.
Ha.
Onun için bilmiyorum ben tapabilsem ikinciyi yaptıracağım ama öyle zor ki it's impossible to get hold of it.
Herhalde indi hamı çalışır ki peyvənd eləsin. Ona göre yəqin ki çətindir. Bizim konaklar başka kimlerimiz var?
Indi bizim hello everyone, welcome. Indi bizden bilmiyorum tanıdığım var, danışacak olanlar Faride Hanım'dı, Faride Panahova.
Faride Hanım'ı tanıyorum.
Tamara Hanım'dı, Tamara Dragatse. Onu da tanıyasınız bilmiyorum. Bizim tedbirlere her zaman gelirdi.
Evet.
Sonra bizim Ulvi Papinova var. Bizim Papinova'ların great granddaughter maşallah. Onun ailesi de o 20 yanvarı yaşayıp çok güzel danışır bu hususta. Bir de bizim last but not least Mr. Watson, Neil Watson.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello there. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi, Neil.
Hello there. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
How are you doing?
Yes, fine, thank you. I'm in Suffolk these days.
Did you receive a vaccine?
Not yet, but my mother's had it today.
Okay.
Excellent. They're going through the ages from 80 plus.
That's right, yes.
But next week they start with the 70 plus, I think. They've just started.
That's correct, yes. I think they start from Friday, don't they?
O nerede? Ramila. Buna girmeden sigara yaksına göre onu koydular. Samir onda koyurlardan bir başka rezerv. Var telefonu sende.
Sündüz Hanım necəsən? Hoş geldin.
Sağ ol. Sağ ol. Teşekkür ederim. Siz necəsiniz? İyisiniz inşallah.
Sağ olun. Belə işlərdə evdə qalmışıq, bir tərəfə gedə bilmirik.
Aynen.
Ama dedik bu sene de unutmayak bizim 20 Yanvar'ı, çok önemli bir gün.
İyi yaptınız. Elinize sağlık. İyi yaptınız. Sağ olun da siz beni davet ettiniz.
Tabii biz her zaman bizim Kerkük'le Azerbaycan kardeşti. Ben her
Aynen.
zaman
Aynen.
öyle bilmişim, her zaman da öyledir yani.
Aynen. Çok doğru. Çok doğru. Zaten biz öğrendik. Şimdi benim bu hafta 4. Zoom toplantımdı. Yarın da toplantım var Zoom. Zoom'da olurken daha çok toplantı yapıyoruz. Dünyanın her yerinde katılıyorlar. Kanada'dan olsun, Türkiye'den olsun, Irak'tan olsun, Kerkük'ten, Azerbaycan'dan. Bu da iyi bir şeydir. Belki de hatta inşallah bu pandemi bitirdikten sonra bunun devamı gelir. Yani biz mesela bir araya gelip de bütün ülkelerimizden, Azerbaycan'dan olsun, Türkiye'den olsun, Irak'tan olsun, yani bütün dünya, Türk dünyasından hepsi bir yere gelebiliriz. Yani bu mitingler devam etsin.
Cevanşir Muallim, Sündüz Hanım Kerküklüdür. Bilirsen de onlar da Azeridiler aslında ama
çok güzel, evet.
Biraz Irak'ta kalıplar.
Biraz.
Irak Türkleri daha çok Azeri lehçesinde danışırlar, konuşurlar.
Aynen.
Aynen. Ben tıbbiyeyi okuyanda İstanbul'da oraya çok gelirdiler tıp okumaya. Ben şaşırdım ki bunlar bizim dili danışırlar. Bunlar Irak'tan gelirler.
Aynen.
Bunlar bizden yani o Sovyet zamanında bunlar bizden daha Azerbaycancıydılar bilirsen. Çünkü Sovyet zamanında it was suppressed. Anyway.
Ama Ali Bey, bence onlar orada yaşayan o Kerkük Türklerinin bir kısmı da Azerbaycan'dan zamanında köçmüş orta yüzyıllıklarda hala. 17-18. yüzyıllıklarda köçmüş insanlardı. Eğer siz hatırlıyorsunuz, mesela Füzuli'nin qəbri niye Kerbala'dadır? Veya Nesimi'nin qəbri yine de Suriye'de. Yani o zamanlar Bağdat'la ve Dameşk'le çok gidiş gelişimiz olmuş.
Evet.
Çok doğru.
Hello, Ambassador. Tahir Muallim.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to meet you.
Evening.
Good to see you. How are you?
You're bearing up with the pandemic. Yeah.
The same here, unfortunately. Very much the same.
Yeah. We are.
Hopefully everybody around you is okay, because we do have people who have succumbed to.
Have you? Oh.
Yeah, we have two families home with COVID.
Not from the embassy, I hope.
From the embassy.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's where we are.
Are they at home or at the hospital?
At home. Self-isolating.
Yeah.
One is about on his way to recovery, another one unfortunately still. Caşım Elim, hardasınız? Bir salam verdim, görmediniz, eşitmediniz.
Salam, necəsiniz?
O gördü. Ne var ne yok.
Sağ olun, çok sağ olun.
Yaxşı olasınız.
Sağ olun.
Böyle işler. Size ne var ne yok? Salamatçılığı. Tez danışır ama görüşmürük. Haydi. Sağ olsun Elim Elim fırsat yarattı. Alo. Alo.
Hala da eşidir bir sene. Eşidir, kusura bakma ben. I am the single-handed. Shut up. It's very difficult because we are not in a studio, so I have to do it from one computer on myself. Somebody's helping me from Izmir, Turkey, with the videos. So hopefully we'll get through.
Speaking about videos, did you enjoy the one that I sent to you?
Yes, I put it. It come in just nick of time because I was thinking in Turkish meetings we normally have a trumpet music for the minute silence. I'm sure you've come across that, but we don't have one in Azerbaijan. This just came in time, excellent. Really, it's very poignant and just up to date. What it's fantastic. I presume that's done yet today or yesterday or something like that.
I just received it today.
Yeah, fantastic. Are we okay? Okay.
Salam.
Salam Ulvi.
Hello, Ulvi.
Salam Peter. Salam Peter. Hello Arda from Izmir, sunny Izmir. Jale Hanım hoş geldin.
Hoş bulduk.
Faride Hanım maskeyle hoş geldin.
Ben de hamınızı salamlayıram dostlar. Hoş geldin.
Sağ olun, teşekkür ederiz. Right, if you can wait just for a few more minutes, I think people are gradually joining. Sevinç hoş geldin.
Salam. Salam Ali Bey.
Hoş geldin, necəsən?
Sağ olun, sağ olun. İnşallah hamı yaxşıdır.
Yaxşı olmağa çalışırıq under the circumstances, yes.
Yeah, just
Allah,
look after yourself, please, everyone.
yeah. Rafik müəllim, bağlanabilirsən, bağlan da.
Yaxşı, bağlanmışı qəbul olunmur.
Tamam ettim şimdi.
Öyle mi?
Ha.
Yazır rating. Rating yazır, rating. Gözlə.
Yok, gerektiğinde ola. Hele bir bak.
Olmalı.
Herkes giri bak, bilmirəm. Herkes giri.
Bax belədir. Telefona bax. 678 00 4 dənə sıfırdır. O nömrə.
Kodu varsa kodla girək belki çok.
Kod varsa kodla girək.
Yok, o linke vurduysa acaba nereye gitti bilmirəm ki. Bir de çek, bir daha girmeye çalış. Kızının adı ne de özü?
Bax bu telefonda belə Şahnaz Vəliyeva.
Şahnaz Hanım onu kapat, bir daha girmeye çalış.
Bağladım tezden yine WhatsApp'tan linka vururum həmin şeydə Ali bəy.
Bax bu belə çıxır. Belə gör.
Bir daha link yollayayım o zaman ben sana, bir dakika. Onu kapat sen programı.
Bağla.
Right. Just waiting for the Rafik Muallim, having a bit of a problem from Baku.
İndi danış.
Ali Bey eşidirsiniz mi hani?
Ha, şimdi oldu ha. Hoş
Aha.
geldin. Hoş geldin.
Sağ ol.
Hoş.
Çok sağ olun.
Sani Bey. Sani Bey. Hoş geldin. Okay. Herkesten xahiş ederim. Can we please turn our microphones off to start with? Are we okay?
Yes, Ali Bey başlayabiliriz.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Ali Tekin Atalar, and as the chairman of the London Azerbaijan House, I'd like to warmly welcome you and thank you all for making the time to join us to commemorate the victims of 20th of January tragedy. We start the evening with a minute's silence for the victims of the 20th of January tragedy and the glorious martyrs of the recent Second Karabakh War. We have a fresh special message from the Azerbaijani soldiers who have liberated the Pearl of Karabakh city of Shusha. They invited us from Shusha for 1 minute silence in memory of the victims of the 20th of January and their fallen comrades who fought so heroically liberating the occupied territories of Azerbaijan. This will be followed by the national anthem of Azerbaijan. If you all can stand.
Şehit oğul ve kızlarının 20 yanvar şehitlerinin, Karabağ Muharebeti şehitlerinin ve Ümmü lider Heydar Aliyev'in aziz hatıresini bir dakikalık sükutla yad eder. Allah rahmet eylesin. Azerbaycan Respublikası'nın devlet himninin ifasına başla.
Okay. 31 years ago, on 20th day of January, peaceful citizens of the capital city of Azerbaijan, Baku, suffered the worst kind of cruelty by the soldiers and police of a dying regime called USSR, which is supposed to protect its citizens. 20th of January, which also known as Kara Yanvar or Black January, is one of the most important events in the history of the modern Azerbaijan. It was also important in establishing its independence and its modern nationhood second time in 20th century. Azerbaijani people had suffered similar cruel events preceding the establishment of the first independent Azerbaijan Democratic Republic in 1918. However, as tragic and unspeakable as the day's event were, it totally galvanized the people of Azerbaijan to be more determined with absolute solidarity to demand and eventually achieve the withdrawal of Soviet troops from the country and achieve full independence. Remember all the victims of that day with great respect and eternal gratitude. We will now continue with an audiovisual presentation to refresh our memories about the reasons and the fast-moving events occurred on that day with photographs and videos. This will be followed by speeches from our distinguished speakers and finally music by our distinguished musicians. Thank you.
seven yüreğin Açan can sirdaşları Şehitler xiyabanı Tarihin düğünleri Milletin mehmemekun Düşünen beyinleri
Ali bəy, mikrofonunuz bağlıdır.
Her zaman böyle olur Cavanşir müəllim. Kusura bakma.
Problem değil.
Ama sıra ambasadorumuzdaydı. Onu görebilmirəm. Deyəsən işi çıxdı.
Buradayım.
Çok özür istəyirəm. Buyurun. Apologies for the quality of the last bit of video. That was the best I could find regarding the funerals. Anyhow, I think we've had some ideas for the people who's not familiar with the history of this, what went on. And now I would like to ask our ambassador, Tahir Tagigazadeh, to say a few words, please.
Ali Bey, thank you so much. You apologize for the quality of the video. I think it's not about the quality of the video, it's about the quality of the people whose sacrifice we are commemorating today. It's about the qualities that we have in our hearts, that we've kind of inherited from them. And as the events of the 44 days war, as the events of the patriotic war of Azerbaijan have shown, this heritage did not go in vain. It indeed gives it in our hearts. Because, I think it was last year when we were commemorating the 20th of January, I mentioned this famous quotation from Jean Jaurès, who said that any victory is usually nourished by the blood of martyrs. So it was their blood that provided nourishment to the seeds that have grown in the hearts of our soldiers who climbed the mountains of Shusha, who battled Armenians on the plains of the occupied regions of Azerbaijan around Nagorno-Karabakh, and also in the mountainous terrain of the occupied Karabakh itself. But back to the 20th of January, or the nights of the 19th to 20th of January 1990. You are aware that it is not just about 147 people who died as a result of the atrocities perpetrated by the Soviet authorities. It was not just about 744 people who were seriously wounded and injured as a result of this attack. Absolutely unprovoked attack, shall I say. This is more or less about the moment when Azerbaijan, as was documented by Heydar Aliyev, immediately the next day after the invasion of the Soviet army in Baku, as confirmed by Heydar Aliyev and declared by Heydar Aliyev the next day at the permanent Azerbaijani mission in Moscow, something that demanded both political assessment and legal punishment, because that was contrary not only to any international documents to which Soviet Union was a party, including the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and many others. It was also the violation of the supreme law of the Soviet Union itself, the Soviet Constitution. Just today, I was with great interest reading the interview by Ukrainian ambassador to Azerbaijan, Ambassador Kanevsky. What he said was very, very symbolic to me. He said that the morning of the 20th of January 1990, people in Baku were waking up to the cannonade of tanks and to the sound of firearms, but they eventually woke up to the urge for freedom, sovereignty, and independence. What happened in Azerbaijan, he said, was just the first call, and it has woken us up in Ukraine and Lithuania, in Georgia and Kazakhstan. So the sacrifice of those 147, the sufferings of those 744 were much more than just individual human contributions. That was not only the beginning of Azerbaijan's sovereignty, which has culminated through the 44 days war. It was also a very important wake-up call for all the other nations of the former Soviet Union. A signal that the Soviet Union was far beyond repair, far beyond reform. It was only about sovereignty and nothing else. This is something where the other nations looked up to the example of Azerbaijan, to sacrifice of our compatriots. I sincerely believe that what we are living through now these days of elation, these days of gratification after the glorious victory of Azerbaijani armed forces under the leadership of the President Ilham Aliyev, the commander-in-chief, are much more than just a single episode in the history of a single nation. This is a logical outcome of what happened the night of January 20th, 1990. I honestly believe that independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity of my country will be further strengthened. And those who question these supreme principles that form the basis of any statehood, those who promote the ideas of yet another war, and unfortunately we see that sort of calls and that sort of statement of the other side, those who promote the ideas of revanche will face proper response, and all necessary steps will be taken to bring to justice those responsible for various crimes against my people, against my country, against our nation, and against its aspiration for freedom and sovereignty. And here we talk not only about Armenians who occupied 20% of Azerbaijan illegally and held it as such for 3 decades. Here we are talking also about the Soviet leadership, which has thought of nothing better than to punish the victim of aggression by adding insult to the injury, by killing innocent people. Here we also talk about the international community that was so much, I'm looking for a word now. I won't say ignorant, because ignorant they were not. I won't say indifferent, because indifferent they were not either. I would say who were audacious enough to talk to Azerbaijan and Armenia in equal terms, as if we were both in the same position, drawing a sign of equality between a victim and an aggressor. I have nothing better to wrap my brief remarks with, but something that was said during the House of Lords hearings or question to the FCO day before yesterday by Lord Bruce. Lord Bruce said something very, very important and very significant. He said, for 30 years, we have declared that Azerbaijan has a right for territorial integrity, and we have recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. But what have we done in reality to promote Azerbaijan's right to territorial integrity? Many countries can find an opportunity for catharsis, an opportunity for self-reflection in what they did or what they did not do in those decades. But there will be always a single perpetrator. The Soviet Union that was being guided by the old Roman rule of divide and conquer. The Soviet Union that decided that there was no better way to save a sinking ship of the Soviet state, but to put an end to lives of innocent human beings, innocent civilians in Azerbaijan. And Soviet Union, which was so sorely mistaken, because it was the beginning of mass exodus from the Communist Party and the moment where the idea of national identity and national sovereignty of Azerbaijanis has taken full shape. So the fires of the burning cars on the streets of Baku, the night of 19th to 20th January, were the fires in which the steel of Azerbaijani statehood was tempered. I sincerely congratulate you, Dr. Atalar, on having yet another successful event, and something that indeed shows us that we do not forget. And those who do not forget are less susceptible to repeating the same mistakes again. Thank you, sir. Çok sağ ol, Hamulus. Thank you, Javanshir Melin, specifically, for joining us from Baku.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your wise words and kind words. And now we have Farida Panahova to speak to us as the second speaker. Farida, you are muted. Ah, that's good. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atalar. I'm joining you from the hospital. That's why I'm wearing this mask. And since the war started, and I'm in Azerbaijan since mid-September, And since the war started, I've been doing some voluntary work in hospitals, different hospitals. And it really, really gives me great pleasure. Not that I'm serving the injured soldiers and helping those families. It is the first time after 28 years, I have the opportunity of staying in Azerbaijan a bit longer and serving my nation. United Kingdom is my second home. I love United Kingdom, but most of my adult life I lived in United Kingdom. I never managed to be in Azerbaijan for such a long time. And the stories that I'm hearing from soldiers, witnessing their pain, witnessing their sacrifice, is so overwhelming. I cannot even begin to describe. I think, Ambassador, I have to thank you for such a wonderful speech, and then the way you started your speech. I actually prepared a very polished speech, but I'm going to skip now, and I'm just going to just say what the 20th of January means for me. The 20th of January event played a decisive role in awakening the national consciousness, as we all know. It was a final attack by the Soviet army to try to preserve its position. It was a fight between communism and anti-communism. It was a fight between democracy and totalitarianism. 20th of January event played a significant role, a unique role in unifying the country and create a national identity, as you mentioned, where previously none had existed. The significance of the events in Baku on January 20th, 1990 cannot be overestimated. On that day, the fate of Soviet Empire was sealed forever. It quickly became apparent that even the might of Soviet military could not extinguish the hopes, dreams, and determination of people seeking independence, freedom, and sovereignty. Indeed, the Black January can be seen as a day of national reconciliation, where the country's political divisions, as we all remember, were forgotten, for the moment at least, and all united in common past and against the common enemy. And enemy was the Soviet regime, Soviet army, that we believed in so much. Despite the curfew and the repression which followed the 20th of January, that day became a turning point for Azerbaijan and strengthened the determination of the people to build their own independent country. So in 1991, Azerbaijan became an independent country, and in April, if I'm not mistaken, 1993, Azerbaijan was the first amongst the Soviet republics that with no Soviet troops and with no foreign military base on its soil. So today we must remember fallen. We pause, we reflect, and with grateful thanks, we remember them. Because if we do not, the sacrifice of those who gave up their lives will be meaningless. They died for us. They died for their homes, for their families and friends, and for a collection of traditions they cherished so much, and the future they believed in. They died for Azerbaijan, and they can never be forgotten. And today, and I look around and working in hospitals in different hospitals for a long, long time, for long days, and walking in our streets with people joyous after the Second Karabakh War, and people talking about building monuments to different soldiers to die to the martyrs. And to me, the best monument is for those who sacrificed their lives, is the free, independent, and sovereign Azerbaijan. This is the best monument ever we can build for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Farida, for those heartwarming speech, and we very much appreciate, I'm sure everybody will join you for the work you've been doing voluntarily, looking after the patients, particularly the brave soldiers who were wounded during the war, Thank you very much, and we're most grateful. Now we come to our dear friend Tamara Dragadze. Tamara, can you unmute yourself, please? I think you're mute. That's lovely. Tamara has been a great friend to Azerbaijanis in England and in Azerbaijan. I've known her well over 30 years, and his dedication to friendship of the Azerbaijanis and Azerbaijani has been absolutely incredible. She never missed any of our meetings, whether it's happy days or the somber days. She's always there with us. Even some of the marches, she would come and join us in central London or wherever it was. Anyway, she was very kind to accept to join us to give a speech or to talk about the events and how she feels about it. And here we are, Tamara Dragadze.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Yes, I think I've spoken on several occasions over many years about Black January at different venues. But I was sort of wondering, you know, what has changed this year in the perspective that we might have for Black January. But I'd like to go back in, as you know, foreigners were forbidden to go into Baku around then. Luckily, I had a Academy of Sciences sponsored visa, and my mentor managed to get a special entry for me so that though I had my visa, I could still come. And I came a few days after the event. And the first thing, and it keeps on coming back to me now this year, is total disbelief. People couldn't believe that it happened. No, there were a lot of Azerbaijanis, in fact, who still felt that being part of the Soviet Union was the best option. And as the ambassador said, that event was sort of the end. It forged the unity around independence, which until then had not been completely unanimous in Azerbaijan. And it was just total disbelief. And that was because of the indiscriminate kind of killings. It was children, it was a blind man, it was a Russian, it was a couple of professors of chemistry sitting in their car. I mean, it was there was no rhyme or reason. People were just being killed for the sake of being killed. And I think that sort of led, though people could see the logic behind it, of the Soviet troops wanting to destroy Azerbaijan's hopes of independence by showing a hard fist, they couldn't really believe that they would have done that. How could they have done that? And the third thing, of course, that I always reflect on is that we don't have exact numbers, because there were some bodies, I know because I'm an anthropologist, therefore my main audience was always villagers. Some corpses were taken away back to their villages and buried very quickly. There was such fear of authority as at the time that they didn't want to have any problems. They didn't want to then say, well, actually, we buried somebody we should have left in Baku. And so the exact numbers might never be known. But the other thing I was thinking about, well, who were these Soviet troops who did it? And unfortunately, they were of the same composition ethnically and in mindset as those who committed the atrocities in Tbilisi earlier, and in the other places that Dr. Atalay talked about. But in fact, the Russian Federation troops today are the direct inheritors of the Soviet troops at the time, both ethnically, their mindset to a certain extent is they are the same. And this is something that is something we shouldn't forget. But yes, I said that they were Russian. What is interesting, however, for me, is that the next day after I'd arrived, I was in the small bazaar not far from the Academy of Sciences that sold fruit and vegetables and so on. And I saw Russian soldiers in full uniform going around the bazaar buying their fruit and vegetables. And I turned to somebody and I said, but these are the troops that have just committed those atrocities. And one of them said, well, you know, he's got to buy fruit for his family. And I was just so taken aback by this kind of idea that beyond everything, there is a common humanity. Yes, all fathers want to buy fruit for their children and families, despite their ethnicity. And it was something that really humbled me, because there is this in the Azerbaijani people, and I say to a certain extent, perhaps even more than among the Georgians, who, in fact, Russians were very afraid to go out at one period after the atrocity. That here there is this sort of feeling that you can't punish a whole people for what some of them do. They're still fathers with families. And why I'm saying all this is because this kind of spirit of tolerance and forgiveness gives me hope for the eventual day when Armenians and Azerbaijanis will start to live side by side as they had before. It's the best guarantee of peace, is a spirit of forgiveness and tolerance. And may this terrible day never happen again. But I always do like to end the commemorations of terrible events like Khojaly or Black January with a view of the future, where good does prevail over evil. Some of the territory has been liberated. In the United States right now, the inauguration of Joe Biden is happening. Good has prevailed over evil. And I like to think that despite everything that happened, the basic reaction of people to what happened is actually able to build a future for Azerbaijan, for peace one day, because good always triumphs over evil. And we mustn't forget what happened on Black January, those 2 horrible days. But at the same time, we can take something very precious and use it for the future. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Tamara, for those very moving speech and reminding us again that especially your last phrase, the good always prevails over evil. Let's hope that it happens soon in Karabakh and settles down for a longer lasting peace. We have next speaker, Ulvi Papinova, and the people who don't know Ulvi, she's one of the descendants of the most famous Azerbaijani from the past, Papinova families. I think she's great-granddaughter of the Papinovas. And this morning, first thing I looked at the Facebook and saw her 3 posts, which I really was very, very moved by the way she put all her opinions, past and now and future, for the future, of all relating to the January 20th in 1990 events. And I couldn't resist at last minute inviting her to say a few words. And here is Ulvi Papinova.
Hello everyone, and Ali Bey, thank you so much even for the last minute. It was it's an honor for me to join our honorable speakers, and thank you to Tahir Bey, to Farida Hanum, to Tamara Hanum for this, for such vivid recollections. I would say Azerbaijani House is our kind of first herald of the Azerbaijani voice in the UK, and I still remember the day of the opening in 2008, I believe it was.
Right.
So I guess to conclude, I would say that on such days of commemoration, we remember the fallen, the victims, those who sacrificed their lives. But very importantly, I think we should also remember the cause, they stood for, what made them, what drove them to, flock to the main square, which, later on gained the name of Independence Square for a reason. And we must remember that it was the Karabakh issue, the Armenian-Azerbaijani question that laid the ground to the Black January massacre when Mikhail Gorbachev and, as I call them, Armenian cohorts, as if you remember, his main advisor was the Armenian, let's see, 1 second, his name, Abel Agambikan, decided to send the Soviet troops to Baku to kill innocent people for the attempt to rebel and call for independence from the Soviet Union. And it was seen Azerbaijanis, the countrymen expelled, deported from their homes, from the lands of their ancestors, from Kafan, from Mehri, from Daralayez, Basakecher, districts of Armenia, started from 1987. That made our people distressed, and it was seen in Azerbaijani refugees coming in buses to Sumgait, to Baku, to Genge, that made our parents, grandparents, they made them realize that things get far too serious. And 250,000, some other sources say it's 270,000, were expelled and deported from Armenia within 2 years prior to the Black January massacre. And also by then, murder and deportation of Azerbaijanis started taking place in Karabakh itself. So it was the silence of the Soviet authorities and the no interference that made our people question, for how long will we have to bear this tyranny of the Soviets, sympathizing with Armenian separatism. So, and the last straw for our nation was, the decision of the Supreme Council of the Armenian Union Republic to annex Nagorno-Karabakh to Armenia in December 1989. And that completely, fueled the feeling of protest amongst Azerbaijanis against the Soviet dictatorship. As we've seen in the video, and as we had this recollection from our speakers, the extent of brutality of the Soviet troops to the revolt was beyond anyone's imagination. The blood-stained streets, multiple corpses, crushed cars, and horrendous stories from horrendous stories from real people. Little did we know that another massacre and another genocide of Azerbaijanis would be taking place in Khojaly, and it would be committed by Armenian armed forces, and again with Russian help. So I was myself 13 at the time, and I was not in Baku. I was growing up in Moscow, but I do remember the whole anti-Azerbaijani sentiment, the anti-Azerbaijan atmosphere at the time, and also despite that both of my parents were respected in the working fields, they had to face these sort of challenges as well. And it was an incredible, stressful period and time for the whole family, and trying obviously to get more information what's going on through our relatives in Baku. And I still feel, I still see that fear in my cousins, in my aunties, in my uncles, when I speak to them about these events. So I think we Azerbaijanis feel very bitter about being neglected by the international community, by Western scholars, Western media, Western politicians. I share a lot of this kind of content on my Facebook, but keep kind of moaning and complaining. But it is the case. We're not getting heard, and we had trauma after trauma, and on top of everything, we didn't have any voice in the international arena, and we still struggle on this side. So the ethnic cleansing and deportation of Azerbaijanis from Armenia went absolutely unnoticed, while the image of victimized Armenians in Sumgait rolled over and over and over for Western audiences. So I'll just come back to this sort of question of reasoning again, the cause, and little kids always ask why, but why? So, but why? Why is our side is not heard? Is it something wrong that we don't do right or do wrong, or is it something that lies outside of sort of our control, like geopolitical games, or as we say, influential Armenian diaspora, or mountains of historic bias that we are not enabled to move an inch, in Europe or in America. As for example, for instance, Gorbachev, the figure which is so respected in the West, glorified. But from our point of view, can Black January be glorified? Is it some sort of a room for glorification? And so it's a tough job for us, for Azerbaijanis, I would say. But just to probably end on a more promising note, that we should not underestimate ourselves, as the last war has shown to us and proved. And we should not be, I guess, afraid and being shy, being repetitive, persistent, tautological maybe, but if we want to achieve, and what we want to achieve and is being heard, that we need to work really hard as a community. And I'm really grateful once again to Ali Bey and our pioneers of the Azerbaijani community here in the UK, and I really hope there will be a great continuation of your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ulvi. It was very moving again. I just want to add just a little bit of my personal memories, that when this was happening in Azerbaijan, in England, or in the West, particularly in England and America, Reagan and Mrs. Thatcher was absolutely infatuated with Mr. Gorbachev. He was the darling of the West. He could do no more. While he was committing all these crimes, we did not hear a word. I mean, I only learned that it was Gorbachev who gave the orders to march into Baku many, many years later. They just wouldn't have any bad thing to be said in the press, and eventually they succeeded to dissolve the Soviet Union, which is a good thing, I have to say. But anyway, that was my little contribution after Ulvi's mentioning that what happened. And we have an addition that another friend of Azerbaijan, very steadfastly and always been with us, I'm sure most of you know him, is Mr. Neil Watson. Wanted to say a few words. Where are you, Neil?
Oh, hello, Dr. Atla, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak on this very saddest of days. So it's now 31 years ago that the Black January events happened. And as far as I'm concerned, this was a tremendous tragedy for humanity, because it saw a desperate Soviet Union under the direction of its final, admittedly pro-Armenian General Secretary, Mikhail Gorbachev, fire indiscriminately on his own people, that is Soviet citizens. And the date of the 20th of January 1990 was also the first time that I, a British citizen, actually heard the name of Azerbaijan on the BBC television news. I remember at the time that none of us actually understood why Gorbachev, who was eulogized, as you correctly say, in the West at the time for his glasnost and perestroika policies, used 26,000 Red Army soldiers to fire on his own people. I remember prayers being said for the victims in our churches and at my school, but little did we know that this event would herald the start of Azerbaijani independence and ultimately the collapse of the Soviet Empire. So on this day, the bravery of those who barricaded the streets and made their voices heard on the 20th of January should never be forgotten. Those people remember the successes of the Azerbaijani Democratic Republic from 1918 to 1920, and this thirst for independence had not receded. Even after the slaughter on the 20th of January, 1 million Azerbaijanis attended the funerals, and we saw that in the video, and yet they knew what the potential repercussions could be. And as Ulvi and yourself alluded to, there are reasons for the complete apathy of the West to the tragedy of Black January. Firstly, the republics of the former Soviet Union, and of course that includes Armenia and Azerbaijan, were inadequately reported on and understood in the West, partly due to the success of Soviet propaganda enshrouding them in secrecy. And secondly, such right-wing politicians as British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and American President Ronald Reagan saw it as their duty to dismantle the Soviet Union, thereby ending the Cold War. And Gorbachev, who very soon will celebrate his own 91st birthday, was regarded as their friend who had worked towards achieving this objective. They therefore deliberately overlooked the Black January tragedy as just collateral damage in destroying the Soviet Union, and the architects of this crime against humanity will never ever pay for their decisions on that fateful day. So may their souls rest in peace and may their sacrifice never be forgotten.
Thank you, Neil. That's very kind words and very wise analysis of the situation at that time. We've actually come to the end of the scheduled speeches, but anybody else wants to say a few words, more than welcome to just raise your hands and I'll unmute you. And Mr. Javanshir Feyziev, yes, please. Unmute yourself. That's great. Floor is yours, Javanshir Merlin.
Yeah, thank you, Ali Bey. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting us to this meeting and for inviting so many nice people to this online meeting. This is a morning day in Azerbaijan, and I'm in Baku. And it's honestly difficult to say what is the day. Is it really morning day or something? You can find anything positive in that also. The speakers who spoke before me, I actually remembered every hour, every minute of that night, because I am a witness of all these events happening during the night. I lost also my friend from the university. I was a student in that time, and we were very active in those demonstrations to get an independence from Soviet Union. Now it's really very difficult to talk about that, for me at least. But what I heard from the speakers, from Mrs. Dragadze, from Ulvi Khanım, and from Nile, so I imagine that they were exactly in that night, in those events as participants, because they described so well what happened and what was the meaning of this brutal attack against the civilians, peaceful civilians. In fact, I have to say that we were very naive. We never could believe as Tamara Hanım said, we could never believe that the government, the Soviet government, can put on its citizen. So that was something very new for us. That's why it was really difficult. Even when it happened, we couldn't still believe that what is happening. So that's why everybody was lost in that night. So till now, the people remember that night, those days, as a mourning day. But at the same time, this event played an important role in the history of Soviet Union. It gave a big impetus the movement of independence in all other republics of Soviet Union. After 20 January, in all other republics, the people also understood that the Soviet Union is not a state of citizen. It's not a civilian society. We have to put an end to this brutal system, and we need to get our independence. So this is actually what brought to awakening of national identity. So eventually we got independence, and now today I have a dual feeling. On one hand, it's a tragedy because we lost the best sons of our nation. On the other hand, it is really a victory on a Soviet philosophy, victory on a communist philosophy. Fortunately, now we finished with that. We are independent. And now just recently we liberated our occupied territories also. Sovereignty came back, independence in our hands. We are happy today, but we will never forget what happened on 20 January because it's important that our next generations know what happened and how they have to plan or to live for our future generation. It's to know for our future generation, to know that history is very important, I think. That's why I invited my son with me. He's listening you, if you can see him.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yeah. Once again, I want to thank all of you. It's really hard to speak for me today. But I want to thank you for your initiation of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yaman Muallim. We're all very moved with your speech and emotions you've shown. Allah hepsine rahmet eylesin, bütün şehitlerimize. Ruhları şad olsun. May all the martyrs be in peace. Now, I'm not sure, but I saw a gentleman, Mr. Patrick Walsh. Can you hear me, Pat?
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Well, I don't know whether it's very kind of you to join us. I mean, I'll just very briefly to tell people who are not aware you've been here. Patrick is a distinguished historian taking great interest in Caucasus and Turkey. And we're an avid follower of his writings, and I found them incredibly objective and impartial, which is the main thing. We want to be realist and not run away with our personal feelings. And I think over the years he's been visiting Azerbaijan and the region. And he has, as far as I can see, he's got a good insight into the politics and the geography and the history of the place. So I don't know whether he'd like to say a few words, if he feels like it. The floor is yours, Pat.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I'm honoured to really for you to invite me today, and it's a very sad occasion, obviously. Funnily enough, I can try to remember 1990 now, but it doesn't appear in even though I was a sort of student of politics at the time, I can just vaguely remember the events in Baku, being on the news at the time. My first encounter with Azerbaijan, I think, was I was a strange student in the sense I studied Soviet geography in school in the university in the 1980s. So that's what I heard about Azerbaijan first, really. But I think that there was a term for this type of event that happened, and it was I remember it from it was talked about the Amritsar massacre in India back in I think it was 1921. I think it was called an administrative massacre. And it was basically used to cower people. If there was a sort of like a spirit of resistance, or the population was getting too activist, the idea was to hit them with maximum amount of force in a large massacre, and it would basically make them passive again. So I think the term, I read it in a book years and years ago by Al Cartil, who was a senior judge in Britain, and he wrote a book about it called, I think it was called The Lost Dominion. But he termed this type of event an administrative massacre. In other words, a massacre by the government that was legal and was in some ways, necessary, so to speak. But that's the only way I could describe what happened in Baku and the way the Soviets would have seen that. The extent of it is enormous. We had some events like this in Northern Ireland, like in Derry and Ballymurphy, where 25 people were killed in one night. But nothing to the extent of this. This is a really shocking scale of killing. Unbelievable, really. The only thing I can say is that, Gorbachev was, as Neil said, he was the West's useful fool, and he has a standing from that he did collapse the Soviet Union because his misguided policies pushed the genie out of the bottle, the nationalist genie, and obviously he encouraged the Armenians, and he basically didn't defend the settlement in the 1920s, the state, which he should have done, really, and of course it all went completely wrong after that. And of course, regimes that lose their lose support, become basically just husks and have no real support anymore. Use these types of methods to maintain power. So it's a very sad event, and I can understand the trauma, really, that you felt from that. Ireland in some ways has gone through these types of events, but they've actually, I know, looking back from Irish history, they've made the Irish people much stronger, and we sort of commemorate these people, again, it's like it's ingrained in our history, and it does actually lead, it is part of the nation building process, even though it is a tragedy and it's a shocking thing. And you got to feel sorry for all those people and their families and everything that suffered. But it does make nations stronger if they survive it and if they come back stronger. And Azerbaijan obviously did do that. The next days, the funerals, and they came to the streets and they defied the Soviet Union. And so that was the end of the Soviet Union, because if you don't break people through these administrative massacres, then the people are stronger, and you can't stop things then, and the game is up. And I think that's what happened in Azerbaijan and in Baku in January 1990, that the game was up for the Soviet Union after this event. And but I hope, just to finish off, really, I hope that everything works out for the good. And we've had our conflicts here, and we have a peace settlement and it's working fairly well. And I hope that something like this happens with regard to Karabakh, and there is some functional settlement that people learn to live in peace, and particularly the Armenians turn their back on their poisonous nationalism and engage with their neighbors, and for the benefit of all people in the region. So that's what my hope is for everybody. And again, just to finish now, I'd like to thank you again for inviting me, and I wish everybody all the best.
Thank you very much, Pat. It's very kind of you to contribute with those thoughtful words, and we look forward to your comments and the writings in the future regarding these issues. Is there anybody else would like to have a word before I go on to the music section, please? Just raise your hands if you're welcome. We could have another questions after the music finish, if you like. I think we better go on to the music, because our great friend and great musician and the best tar player in United Kingdom, Rafik Rustamov, is waiting for us to give him the floor. Where is Rafik? All right, Rafik Müəllim, buyurun.
Akşamınız xeyir olsun Ali Doktor. Her birinize selam. 1990-cı il 20'si qanlı yanvar, qara yanvar kimi Azərbaycan xalqının sinəsinə, ürəyinə dağ çəkilmişdi. O dağ tarixlər boyu heç bir zaman unudulmaz. Nə qədər Azərbaycan xalqı yaşayırsa, o dağ heç bir zaman unudulmaz. Biz həmin dövrdə Azərbaycan xalqı 147 nəfər şəhid verdi. 700 nəfər qazimiz oldu, yaralılarımız oldu. 800 nəfər həbsə atıldı. Buna baxmayaraq, biz həmən tariximizi qürurverici bir tarix kimi də qəbul edirik. Niyə? Onun üçün ki, bizim Azərbaycan xalqı bir elə şəhid verməklə, bir elə yaralılarımız, bir elə həbsə düşənlərimiz, bir elə təzyiqlərimiz, bunun qarşısında biz azadlığımızı əldə eləyə bildik, müstəqilliyimizi qoruyub saxlaya bildik. Nə qədər ki bizə zülm elədilərsə, biz o zülmə dözə bildik. Və bu günləri bütün dünyaya Azərbaycan xalqının təmkinliliyi, Azərbaycan xalqının səbirliliyi, Azərbaycan xalqının təpərliliyi, onun döyüşkənliyi artıq öz sübutunu göstərdi. Özünün o cəsurluğunu göstərdi ki, bu 30 il ərzində tarixən Azərbaycana həmişə qiyamlar olub, Azərbaycana haqsız hücumlar olubdu, torpaqları, ərazi iddiaları olubdu. Bu hamı məlumdur. 200 ildən bəri torpaqlarımız əldən gedə-gedə bugünkü gündə bizim ali baş komandanımız, prezidentimiz İlham Əliyevə Allah Taala ömür versin, can sağlığı versin, eşq olsun ki, onun səbirliliyi, onun təmkinliliyi, onun uzaq görən siyasəti, xarici siyasəti, daxili siyasəti gətirdi bugünkü gündə 20% işğal olunmuş torpaqlarımızın qələbəsi ilə nəticələndi. Mən bunu deməkdə məqsədim budur ki, Azərbaycan xalqını heç bir zaman aciz bir xalq kimi tanımasınlar. Azərbaycan xalqı həm qonaqpərvərdir, həm tolerantdır, həm necə deyim, hər bir sahədə təmkinliliyini, səbirliliyini gözləyən bir xalqdır. Bu mənada, yenə də deyirəm, bu tarixlər boyu heç bir zaman sinəmizdən, ürəyimizdən silinməyən bir tarixdir, qanlı bir faciəli tarixdir 20 yanvar. Amma o biri tərəfindən də bayaq qeyd elədiyim kimi, deməli bizim qürur verici bir tariximizdir ki, biz müstəqilliyimizi və azadlığımızı qoruyub saxlaya bildik. İndi icazənizlə, əgər vaxt varsa, bir qəmgin not üzərində tarla mən bir musiqi ifası çatdırım sizlərə.
Sağ ol Rafik müəllim, gözləyirik. Buyurun. teşekkür ederiz. Sağ ol. Well, a lot of us, I'm sure, had a difficulty in holding back the tears because it's such a soul-searching music and very poignant for the day's event. Thank you very much. And just a little deep note that myself and Rafik Muallim have agreed, because Rafik Muallim was the head of the music school in Agdam, which is being completely destroyed by the Armenians. But we have decided, and I promised that I will help, and we will sponsor and get other sponsors, and we will build the music school in Agdam, and hopefully Rafik Muallim, as a senior teacher, will start the school back again in the heart of Karabakh, a Mugam Musical School in Agdam. Thank you very much again. And now...
Bütün şəhidlərimizin ruhu qarşısında baş əyirəm. Allah Taala rəhmət eləsin. Qazilərimizin qarşısında baş əyirəm. Şəhidlərimizin valideynlərinin qarşısında baş əyirəm, əllərindən öpürəm. Sağ olun, salamat olun.
Sen de sağ ol, teşekkür ederim, sağ ol. Last but not least, we have a video clip from our dearest young musician and member of Azerbaijan House and the strong supporter of us, Nazrin Rashidova. She apologizes that she was unable to join in live tonight because of her teaching commitments. And we start the video, which is a music composed and played in spirit of the 20th of January and Karabakh. you to Nazrin for the most beautiful and haunting music, which is, I'm speechless. Anyway, it was great. So we have come to the end of our official program, but we still have a bit of time, although we're running half an hour over, to have, if anyone wants to say something before we close for the evening, please raise your hands.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Can I have a word, please?
Sure, go ahead. Qasim Bey, I don't really not familiar with yourself, so can you introduce yourself first, please?
Yeah, my name is Gasim Gurbanov. I'm just Azerbaijani student of University of Aberdeen who lives right now currently in beloved Scotland, and I was organizers of all meetings against Armenian aggression during 44 days of our war in Scotland and in the UK. I would like to thank you all for participation, for organization of this meeting. I'd like to thank Mr. Ambassador. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Speaker, our member of the parliament, Mr. Jamanshir Faiziev. I would like to appreciate the presence of one of the most respected anthropologists, Tamara Dragadze. Her book about Soviet system and the people who lived in the Soviet Georgia. I hope I remember it was rural families in Soviet Georgia, and with these people all the time was a part of our history, and they increased the awareness of international community. We worked for our future, we worked for our past, and we are very proud to be the part of Azerbaijani history, to tell our guests from the United Kingdom and all around the world that Azerbaijan did not deserve what happened to us on the night of 20th January 1990. Soviet government committed a crime against us, and we had to sacrifice, and we had to address the whole world to remember, to assess, and to advise to be suspected Mr. Gorbachev, who committed that crime, and number of people who led that period in that period of time, the Soviet Union. I would like to thank as well Ms. Ulvi Pepinova, whose great-grandfather was one of the first founders of our Azerbaijani Democratic Republic. And I would like to address you all with wonderful news that we have and what we have done in this beloved city of Aberdeen. We have published a book about whole compilations of the UN documents about Azerbaijani-Armenian war, and we will present whole libraries all around Scotland and all around UK, United Kingdom. We really appreciate all guests from United Kingdom to spend your 1 hour of time in this day to be with us, to share our pride for our martyrs. I would like to tell you at the end that martyrs never die, and they all the time they live in our hearts until we remember them, and we will never forget them. Thank you all.
Thank you, Qasim. That was a very good intervention, because we didn't know that was, I didn't know this was going on in sunny Scotland, in Aberdeen especially, but obviously, and thank you for your contribution.
Can I say something?
Yes, please, Farida, go ahead.
So first of all, thank you very much for the lovely evening, although that we talked about our martyrs, our bad days, but we're here to remember them. I can see Jalan Shir Malim here, and I have got a couple of other friends that who are here to participate. But we were looking for Javanshir Malum for a little while, and I'm just asking Javanshir Malum if we could get in touch with you, because I met you at Ambassador's Place, if you remember, in London, but then we got busy later on. We have a little project that I would like to discuss with you, and hopefully I will involve most people that are participating here. And that Dr. Atala, Patrick Walsh, Neil Watson will be all part of it. So I'm hoping that, and Ulvi, the Pinova, and just to say that I need to get in touch with you guys very, very soon. Then I hope you don't mind.
Okay, I'm sure you won't mind. Javanshir Muallim, you won't mind, would you? Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yes, Farida Khanum, I remember very well our meeting in the embassy, and I know about your project, and we are ready to support you, your activities always. And unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we cannot travel now to London. All flights cancelled, but I believe, I hope in a few weeks it can be open, and we can fly easily to London. And sure, I will be happy to meet you and to discuss your project.
No, this is that was a flash mob, but this is more serious project. This is going to involve a lot of people now. Hopefully, I'm going to seek a support from our ambassador as well. Just saying that so you all know that there's something coming up.
Yeah, sure. We discussed already something about this project with the ambassador, and we will come back to this discussion again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should call it off for the day, because you've all overridden 45 minutes. But very, very last time, anyone else wants to make a quick point? Okay, well, thank you very much all for joining and contributing. I'm most grateful, and we're just grateful that everybody have paid their respects and remembered the martyrs who gave their lives for the freedom and the independence of their country. Thank you all, and good night. Geceniz hayırlı kalsın.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Çok sağ olun Ali Bey.
Çok sağ olun.
Çok sağ olun Ali Bey.
Teşekkür ederiz Ali Bey.
Sağ olun.
Bye.
Sağ olun. Siz de
Sağ olun.
Sağ olun.